Welcome back. I'm here with Chris Cooper. Chris owns one of the biggest companies that just helps gyms, particularly local gyms, a lot of CrossFit type gyms, CrossFit style gyms, CrossFit gyms, just explode. But what I really am excited to talk to you about is just the advantages of local marketing, dude, and just how much of advantage we have acting small. And I feel like that's almost a lost art in this day where we feel like we need to impress the internet in order to just get a few more customers. So how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I'm so fired up for this topic because we often describe our town as a great big small town, and
Yeah.
there's like 1 degree of separation in Sault Ste. Marie, which is a dying steel mill town. We've gone to 65,000 from 85,000 in the last decade, and but our businesses are still doing amazingly well. And the stuff that I learned from my first business, now we've taken that into a bunch of other businesses locally too. So I'm really pumped to share this stuff.
Yeah, I mean you're working with 800-900 businesses at a time, aren't you?
Yeah, Two Brain has about 910 gyms worldwide right now.
Yeah.
But I also own some small businesses. So we have a gym still. We have like a storage company and a few others too.
Yeah, and well, the first time that we spoke when you told me you were from Sault Ste. Marie, I kind of did a double take. I don't think I've ever met anybody from Sault Ste. Marie. I was like, oh, it's way up there, up in Canada, eh?
Yes,
But
sir. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, what's they got an OHL team. That's about all that I know about them.
Yep. Sioux Greyhounds,
Hey,
OHL
Sioux
team.
Greyhounds. Yeah.
We got lots of
Well,
trees. Yeah, that's it.
so there's a couple places that I kind of feel like I want to start here. Actually,
Okay.
I think I want to start at the end, which
Hmm.
is not how to get customers as a small business, but is how to leverage connections that exist within communities in
Okay.
advantages. Like to me, tell me if I'm wrong, and then I want to hear about ways that you actually help your people do this if I'm right. Is when you operate locally, everybody has one one area of connection to one another. Like everybody's connected. People trust one another. If somebody makes a recommendation, it just filters through the ether. Much more than like if you get a customer online, that customer might not be connected to any other customers really in any meaningful way. So there's much more work that you have to do when you
Yeah.
operate online. A, do you agree with that? I think you do based off of
Yeah.
Iron Onion. And B, like, are there ways that you have really worked with people to help amplify that or take advantage of that kind of aspect?
Yeah. So 1 degree of separation really holds true in our city. So if I don't know John, I probably know somebody who knows John. And
Right.
so, Catalyst became big really through content marketing. And we would just tell stories of people. And, every second or third story that we shared, you would know them. And if you were
Yeah.
if you were on our email list, you'd be like, "Oh, John goes to that gym." And that's
Right.
really how we became successful in the first place. And then we took it a step further and realized that the referral process was just too passive, and we couldn't wait for people to say, "You should come to the gym with me." And so we stepped it up. And so now when we meet with a client, talk about their goals and their progress, we know who their spouse is, we know where they work, and so we can say, as a thank you to you, we'd love to do a seminar at your accounting firm.
Oh, cool.
Or, hey, I know your husband is getting ready for ski season coming up. I remember last year he was super duper sore after the first day. Can we get him in here for a training session next week and do some stretches to get him ready so he's not just like hobbled? And it's really like having those relationships that lets us play that card, and we teach that to other gyms around the world too. But yeah, I mean, we try to create as many relationships as we can locally. We volunteer to coach hockey, for example. A lot of the clients at my gym and a lot of my employees I met at the hockey rink.
Yeah. So I want to double tap on all of those actually. I want to hit on all of those and go deeper.
It's
Because you
great,
you
man.
nailed so many things that I like. To me, this is what makes businesses great. There's
Mm,
so much attention on how do I get customers, and that's wonderful, and I think that that's important. But I think that there is a tremendous amount of attention that should be put on a lot of these details that once you actually have somebody's attention, hey, can this person bring in somebody else? Or we lost a lead, or we lost somebody, or this person that is already with us is connected to somebody else, or they work
Yep.
in a place that has other people that could benefit from what we do, versus like, hey, how do I find somebody new who I have no prior connection with? You know, why
Yeah.
don't I actually pay more attention to this? So that's why I want to double tap on all these things so much. So I want to start with something you said that was almost like a throwaway comment that you said, but I think it was really, really important, which is you talk about a person, not a thing.
Yeah.
You tell a story about a person, not a thing. If everybody who's listening to this saw the page, whether how much you looked at it or not, promoting the summit, well, 100% of the revenue of the summit is going to support charity. Now,
So
I could
awesome.
say that, and that would be, hey, that's really nice of you. That's really great. Not that meaningful. What does that mean? I could say the specific charity. I could say this goes to the Tyler Robinson Foundation that supports pediatric, that provides financial support for pediatric cancer families. Okay?
Hmm.
A little bit better. Or I could say 100% of the revenue, or I could tell you this, right? I could say 1.5 years ago on a Sunday night at dinner, Nova Kennedy had a headache. Her parents took her to the hospital, this little 5-year-old girl, and within 48 hours, she was in full blown surgery for a brain tumor. 9 months and 5 rounds of chemotherapy later, she's in remission. It's hopeful. Now, we're hoping that there's a happy ending to that story. With cancer, you never know. You hope it never comes back, but things look good. But here's the part that people don't talk about when families have somebody in their family that gets stricken by this type of terrible, unfortunate, unfair disease, is the financial burden that it puts on their family. Nova's mother wasn't able to work for 9 months. They have a mortgage. They had extra transportation costs. They had extra medical costs. And then there's all of these stats, and I can't remember them offhand, but it's something like 80% of families that have pediatric cancer are in debt for like an extra 15 years or something like
Wow.
that. Like it's something like 60% are in like never recover from the debt from the cancer for the rest of their life. So think about the difference between, I'm saying the same thing,
Yeah.
but and then you say 100% of the revenue from this summit is going to support the Tyler Robinson Foundation that provides financial support for families like Nova's in Nova's name.
Hmm. Yeah. Really cool. Big difference.
That's the difference between what you said, and that's why I wanted to double tap on that between, hey, you can tell a story of somebody who got into shape, or tell me about one of the stories that you sent in the newsletter. You can change the name if you want.
Yeah, well, so one really good example was this woman that we had. I'll call her Nancy.
Sure.
She was a nurse at the local hospital, and this was all pre-COVID, but they were all still burned out, and they were all shift workers and stressed and going on strike all the time. And so we brought her in, and we talked to her about like, what brought you to Catalyst in the first place. She told that story. And then I said, what is the number one piece of advice that you give to somebody else in your shoes? And she just started talking about what it's like to be a nurse. And she's like, look, if you're a nurse and you're struggling with this kind of stuff, the best thing that you can do is have an outlet where you are leaving work, you go to the gym, you spend an hour at the gym, and then you go home and you leave it all at the gym. She's like, that's worth the missed hour of sleep. That's worth the
Yeah.
time away from the family, like, because you don't carry that crap home with you. And so many nurses started calling after we posted that blog post that we actually ran like a week where we called it Nurses Week. And it was just like, if you were a nurse, you come in at shift change for free for a week. Thank you for your service.
Beautiful.
And like that's really what that story led to. And that gave us some insights. Another good one was this woman called us up and she's like, I'm doing a destination wedding. I'm not comfortable in my dress. It's too small. I've got like 6 weeks to get into it. What do I do? And we said, well, let's bring your whole bridal party in. And we did, a bunch of workouts to get her into this dress. And then we actually talked to the woman at the bridal shop, and said like, yo, how often does this happen? And she's
Yeah.
like, oh, all the time. People buy these dresses 2 sizes too small as a forcing function to lose weight. And so we just started like sharing that story, and she started sharing the story too. And we started collaborating with the local dress shop. And that's another place these conversations can lead to also.
That's actually really cool because I could
Yeah.
see you printing out that story and like leaving it in the waiting room at
Yep.
the not the waiting room, but what is it called? Like the fitting room or whatever it is
Yeah.
at the dress shop. And just like the story, like, hey,
Yep.
this is Kim's story, right?
Yeah.
And how she did it. And it's about Kim and it's about her wedding and it's about her dream wedding. But in that story talks about how Kim hired the fine people at Catalyst
Catalyst. Yeah. Yeah.
uh, to get in. It's just that the power of stories is everybody talks about it, but there's so much. I feel like there's so much pressure these days to try to impress people that we don't know, who we don't care about, that are never going to do business with us anyway, that we forget about, all of the folks that we can actually help or do business with. You know, the only real way to appeal to nobody is to try to appeal to everybody, isn't it?
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
There was I attribute it to Tim Ferriss. I don't know if it was his, but I seem to remember something that he wrote way back when he was just a lowly blogger, in the probably call it like 2010, 2011 or something like that.
Hmm.
I never read any of his books or anything, but this was a blog post of his, I think. And he was talking about, his secret to content. It was one of those types of things. And he said, what I figured out a long time ago is that it's way better and way more effective to write a blog post that 10% of my audience is going to absolutely love and 90% won't care about than it is to try to write a blog post that 80% of people are going to kind of like.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
And that's exactly what you're talking about. Okay, let's double tap on the next
Makes a
one,
ton of sense. Yeah.
which is where you were talking about well, tell me the story of going into somebody's workplace.
Yeah, so we had a woman. She worked at Algoma Steel. They were going through a big financial crisis. She was very stressed out. And a lot of our sessions started to feel like therapy. I mean, you know what that's
Mm,
like. You're working one on one. And so my advice to her was more around like coping with stress than it was how to squat faster. And so eventually I said, like, Michelle, there's 13 other accountants in your department at the steel plant. Do you think this would help them too? And she's like, oh my God, yeah, it's such a pressure cooker in there. And I said, well, I
wow.
can come in, like pick a lunch hour. I'll show up. You can bring your lunch, you can listen or whatever. And I'll just give you some tips on different things that you can do to manage stress. And I mean, you know what happened next. We went into the steel plant. We taught this thing, you know, 20 minutes into the talk, somebody raises their hand, starts asking questions. An hour goes by, and you're like, I gotta go, and you guys got to get back to work. You know,
Right.
here's how you contact me, and suddenly people are like, can you help me with this? And in fact, that whole technique is so powerful that we wrote a book about it called Help First, because the approach in a small town is like, how can I help John with this thing? And then the second step is I can help him on a professional level too.
Is there any structure that you have? Like, did you have like
Yeah.
a team meeting where everybody kind of got together and they said, hey, where's the opportunities here? Let's talk about our clients. Let's talk about who else they're connected to. Is there any structure like that?
Yeah, so we call that affinity marketing, and we have what we call an affinity marketing cheat sheet. So what it'll be is like column one is here are the 10 clients that we're going to be talking to next month at their goal reviews. Here is their spouse, here is their coworker, and here is their third place, this hobby or whatever that we know about them. Often
Right.
it's their kids' sport. And we're going to fill those things in. And we're going to start with the high affinity ideas. So, you know, what do we know about John? Well, we know John's wife's name and we know what she does. And great,
And
like,
John's wife isn't coming here, so why not?
yeah,
Right.
exactly, right? So,
Right.
like, why would she want to come here? Because this is where John is. So, hey, John, would love to have your wife in here. What do you think about getting her in here next week to do a one-on-one session with you?
Mm,
quite often it works well with sports teams. So you've got a player, he's 12 years old, he's on a local hockey team. Hey, who's your coach's name? Oh, his name is Bill Brown. Wonderful. What's Bill's email address? Bill, we've got little John in here. He's doing amazing. Here's his program. As a thank you to John, we'd love to bring your team in and just have like a Ninja Warrior night. Do you think that'd
Right.
be fun? And that's it. It's like, how can we extend our help and care to the people who surround our best connections?
Yeah, we have a mentorship student of ours. He's in Ireland, and my thing is online training. So,
Yeah.
but what often happens with people that we work with, they come to us and they're like, "I want to do better in content." We're like, actually, you're going to do way better leveraging what you've already been building for a long time. Because what a lot of folks, I mean, in all industries, don't realize is that you've been building connections through whatever you've been doing, your geeky hobbies, your nerdy obsessions,
Totally.
whatever your industries are. You've been building these connections for years. And now you're basically saying all of these assets that I've created, all of these connections, just put them over there, whatever. Right? I'm going to do something completely new and impress people I've never met somewhere else in the world, and I'm going to compete against the rest of the world in doing that. And hey, John, why is nobody listening to me? Is there a way that I can structure my reels better to get more people to pay attention? And it's like, well, maybe that's like your content's fine. Like that's not the problem. Like the problem is you're starting from scratch in a
Yeah.
world where you can't justifiably believe that you're going to be good at something, at anything when you start it. And if you've never
Yeah.
created content before, I'm not saying don't create content, but like there's stages to this. So you can't expect immediate rewards from it because you can't expect to be good at it because you've never done it before, and we suck at stuff we've never done before. So this guy in Ireland was the same type of thing. He was a professional athlete locally. I think it was in hurling, like one of those weird like European sports. But I
So
think it was
cool.
I think it was hurling. Um, and
Hurling.
and him and his partner does like adult physique stuff. I was like, all right, well, what about just like I can tell you as a parent of a kid in grade one. I mean, we're looking for stuff to do on weekends,
That's right.
and we would love for somebody else to take our kid. So what he did, I said, do this as a test. I don't know how well it'll work. Who knows? But like, do it as a test. And he was really fired up by the idea. Put signs up that basically says, "Hey, I'm so and so. I was a professional at whatever this team that everybody knows of,
Mm.
and we're gonna do a free kids training session on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. for an hour and a half. We're gonna have like some food and stuff, and some food for the kids. And then my partner is going to do a parent workout in the same park,
Perfect.
purely volunteer, like, donate to this cause if you can, if you want. But while your kids are learning how to beat the crap out of each other in this sport, why don't you come and train with us? And they've been doing this for a few months now, and that's their entire lead generation source. It's it's so simple when you kind of break it down that way, but you got to start at where you already have. You said you go to a lot of the kids sports as well?
We volunteer and we have for years to coach hockey and stuff. So that's where I would meet a lot of parents. And,
Mm,
of course, as soon as they find out that you own a gym, they feel self-conscious and they'll say something like, oh, I should join a gym.
always.
And, for years I was like,
Does
oh, this
anybody
is
pull the like
awkward.
Al Bundy? Like I used to be a star athlete. They like start telling you about their glory
Oh,
days.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Everybody in Sault Ste. Marie made the last cut for the Olympic team, but
Yeah, right.
no, they all do. They all say, "Oh, I used to be fit or whatever," and it used to be really awkward. And then finally, I realized like I can't make this any more awkward. I might as well just say, "Do you want to come with me?" And
Yeah.
10% of the time, they say, "Yeah."
So how do you navigate that? You just say, hey, would you love to come in with me one day?
No, so I'll give you an exact example. So
Yeah.
this woman's standing at the end of the boards with me. We're looking at our kid. She's like, "So you own that Catalyst place?" "Yeah, yeah, I do. We've had this for 20 years." "Oh my God, I used to work out. I loved it so much. I really need to get back there." Like kind of self-effacing, right?
Sure.
And I'm like, "Why'd you stop?" oh, it just gets so busy with the kids. And I said, well, I'm going at noon tomorrow. Do you want to come with me? And that like stops them in their tracks, and I don't
It's
know. It
just
took,
it's calling out what everybody's thinking. It's
that's
not
right.
beating around the bush. It's not making them feel bad. It's not any. It's just, hey, let's do it.
I think a lot of people, they get so wrapped up in their own head crap that like they won't take that step. But ultimately, you have to ask yourself, like, do I care enough about this person to get over my own BS and actually
Mm,
invite them to come with me? And 10% of the time they'll say yes. 90% they'll be like, oh yeah, yeah, I'll call you Monday, and they never do.
yeah, sure.
But the 10% is worth it.
The 10%'s worth it, and I bet you of that 90% now, you have trust, you have connection, and some of those people I bet show up eventually, and they're happy to see you when they do. One of the
Yeah.
things that um, CSP, Crusty Sports Performance, what they've always told me over the years is, they're famous for training baseball players, so they put more guys in the major league draft for pitchers than anybody else on the planet. And so their name is professional baseball players. But
Mm,
like basically every studio in the world that trains professional athletes, they make the vast majority of their money training general population clients, training regular people.
right.
And one of I won't say their best, I think it might be their best, but one of their best sources of new clients are they have a lot of youth athletes who go to them. Like I did when I was a trainer, I had youth athletes. So and so
Sure.
was a on the Canadian national ski mogul team, right? And the kid came and trained with me, like that type of thing. He was like, whatever, 13 years old, and they go to their baseball games. They go to this kid's baseball game, and they're
Mm,
the only coach of anybody who goes to the baseball game.
yep.
But the kid is so excited. Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, that's John over there. Yeah, I go to the gym with him. All the other kid. Now all of a sudden, this one coach is standing with the parents of all the other kids. Oh, so what do you do with little Timmy? And they'll get like they'll go to like one baseball game for these kids and get the entire team to sign up for small group training,
Yep.
after school. It's just that one extra step of okay, well, you can sit by yourself in a room and try to impress people on the internet, or you can take probably less time and go to your kid's baseball game, you know, or
Yeah,
whatever
exactly.
variation of that it is. Anything
Just,
else?
yeah.
Go on,
It,
go on, go on.
no, no, it's not like you're not going to be welcome, right? Like, so,
Well,
we,
exactly. Yeah,
they'll be thrilled to see you. And I think I did that a little bit in the beginning with, we had a couple of kids who just did like local track and field events. And we'd show up with a little tent and we'd have like a yoga mat inside and the kid would come over before their event and stretch. But every other kid saw this happening. And, the parent would be like, I want that for my kid, and
hmm,
that's who you meet. And then you'd go sit in the stands and Johnny would do his 200-meter run and you would meet five other parents and shake all their hands. And before
yeah,
you knew it, on Monday, there's three appointments booked, and it's so much more effective than like, how do I figure out a Facebook ads funnel? Well, just skip it and go to the hockey game. That's
yeah. I
all.
mean, this is like, I don't know. I feel like this is two old guys talking about what we used to do before the internet was a thing. But I didn't. I mean, back when I was doing this kind of stuff, social media existed, but it
Yeah.
wasn't thrust in your face the same way. It just, we didn't think about it. And so you were forced to figure out these other ways that I would still argue in this book, like the obvious choice book is there is a chapter about social media, but it's the title of the chapter is literally social media is not enough. I mean, it
That's great.
well, it talks about the divide, right? You can try to be an influencer or you can try
Yeah.
to build a business, and I think they're fundamentally different things. I think that the game of winning the internet is very different than the game of building a business, and it's not that one is better than the other, but the reality of it is an influencer is the same as an entertainer, right? The
Mm,
medium's changed, where you entertain has changed, but it's the same thing. The problem is that it used to be if you made the trip to Hollywood and you tried to become a famous entertainer, the rules of engagement were very much clear. The odds of success were low, the time horizon was long, But if you won, you were going to win very, very big. But the vast majority of people would wait tables for a decade and then go back home and
Hmm.
and I don't think there's anything wrong with taking a shot. I think it's inspirational. I think it's wonderful. The difference is today, the rules of engagement are not clear. And that's my problem. It's when you play the game of one, but you desire the rewards of the other. As long as you know what game you're playing and you understand the rules of engagement in that game, totally cool. Go for it. Try to become famous online. But if you're trying to get customers for a business, particularly a local business, it is a gloriously inefficient way to achieve that. Creating content might be a good way to learn, might be a good way to engage your existing customers. Exactly how you're doing it. Tell stories about your existing customers, but it's not a way to impress people otherwise. And I think what you're talking about is really hitting on that. I mean, I remember I trained Canada's top jazz singer for a long time.
Mm.
And similar to what you did, I'd go see her shows when she was in Toronto. She'd go perform at Massey Hall, which is like the
Yeah.
the killer venue right in Toronto. And I go see it, and afterwards, she's signing autographs for everybody and whatever. Her name's Sophie Millman. She's wicked. If you love jazz music, you'll love her. And she's awesome. God, she's funny. She gave me, how like clients give you shit when they train. Like she gave me shit when she trained her, but she's awesome. And and afterwards, of course, what happened? I ended up training her dad, her mom, and her brother.
Of course.
And it's just like I think I trained her husband a little bit as well. But if you own any company, you can do this. This is not a fitness thing. If you own a local coffee shop, bake shop, you got people coming into your thing who have their own things that are important to them. You show up and support them, they're gonna tell it, oh my God, yes, so and so. Yeah, Jeff. Yo, Jeff owns his coffee shop. I go there all the time. It's amazing. Like, that's a wonderful way to grow a business, whatever your business is. You're just supporting the people who go there in whatever they're doing, basically.
Yeah, and I think maybe that trips some entrepreneurs up, right? Because they're always thinking like, what's the next step? And so one piece of advice that we give to local gym owners is,
Hmm.
write down the 10 businesses closest to you
Okay.
and pick up 4 coffees in the morning, go there. Hey, I'm Chris from Catalyst. How's business? Here's some coffee, and that's it. And that what stops them is not like buying the coffee. It's not driving to the business. It's, well, what do I say next? They
Yeah.
build this conversation up as if they have to like sell somebody. And so we say, no, that's it. Like the goal is to take them coffee. The goal is not to sign them up or anything. But there's a cafe in one of our buildings, and that's literally how she built her entire business, was taking 4 cups of coffee to each of the neighboring businesses, and they loved it, started coming in, and she would refer out.
Yeah. Do you know Luca Hosovar?
Mm-mm.
So, gym owner in Seattle, but does a bunch of incredible things.
Cool.
Bigger Grounds, his thing. I think he owns a gym in Slovenia as well, where he's
Hmm.
from, and owns a bunch of other stuff. Great entrepreneur. And he's in the summit as well. And I wanted to bring him in not to talk about gyms, but to talk about leveraging charity and growing your
Wow.
business through charity, because he does stuff with charity boot camps that's about as good as anybody's I've ever seen. And his process for exactly what you just said, we spoke about it on the call. So if you're wondering if you want to get in like much deeper, I'll tell you a little bit now, but go listen to the one with Luca. It's great. But he does exactly that. But what he'll do is he'll find out the owner of whatever that shop is first. He'll find out their first name, which is like not hard to do.
Right.
And then he'll walk in there and he'll be like, hey, what's going on? Is Jim here? Just like he won't say, I'd love to speak to the manager. He'll just be like, is Jim here? It's a local place. Jim's in the back, right?
Jim is
Like,
there.
like Jim is there.
That's
And
great.
so they're like, yeah, one sec, let me go get him. So they go get Jim. And then Luca's like, hey, what's going on? I'm Luca. I own the gym down the street. Look, if you have a couple minutes, I'd love to tell you some of the stuff that's working for us to build business in the area. You know,
Yeah,
now I can do it,
exactly.
or you want to set a meeting. And what he does then is he's just leading with value, and he just talks about what's working for them, right? What's working with them with customers and whatever. But that is a very nice kind of icebreaker. I love the. Is Jim here? Of questions there. Like there's two people
Yeah,
here. Like,
exactly. Exactly.
but I always love that. I'd love to, if you have a few minutes, I'd love to tell you a few things that's working for us.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's
How
such a
do
gift.
how do you possibly say no to that? Right?
I had an attorney once say that he made more deals at my gym than he did in his office. And so
I'm
I
not
think like
surprised.
the next thing, the next layer of this is just introducing your clients to one another and
Yeah.
letting them like strengthen that web too.
Did you ever read Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi?
I think so. It was a while ago.
Same.
Yeah.
But a story that I always remember. It was like one of the this is like the go-to book like 20 years ago, I feel. But a story that I always remember of it, and I'll forget the details, but it was about CTOs, so it was about chief technical officers.
Okay.
And this is a guy who was a enterprise software salesman towards big big companies, right? Like Fortune 500, Fortune 5000 type companies. And so a single enterprise sale could be like hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And so the sales cycles were long. It was a relationship business. He had a book of business. He was a salesman. And very quickly, this guy, as the story goes, became the top salesman at his company by like many times over. And all that he did was that he realized that he didn't actually need to sell anybody anything. He his The way that he was going to grow his business was he connected CTOs to one another. Because at most of these companies, there really isn't a big technical team. And to be
Mm.
the chief technical officer is actually a very lonely job. And these people often didn't really know each other. And that's actually the same, I think, in a lot of industries. People don't really know each other in a lot of industries. Like, what do we do in my mentorship for online trainers? Like, yes, we help you and tell
Yeah.
you the tactical stuff that we do, but really, we connect you with other people like you. And we all support one another to win. And so that's what he did, was that he would
Oh,
book a breakfast meeting and he would invite three CTOs and he would sit down with them all and he would say, look, I'm not even here. There's no pitch. I just thought you guys might want to get to know each other. I'm only here to pay the bill.
wow.
And that was it. It was all he did.
Oh, super cool.
It's so simple. I mean, we're talking a little bit, Chris, here about we're talking a little bit here about how to get customers. But
Yeah.
are there any other stories, any other things that you can bring here of like local businesses that have these local communities where you're like, this works pretty good across the board.
Yeah, so a really key lesson that I learned early on was from auto body mechanic named Nick Palumbo. And I had this hang up where it was like, my friends and family, I don't want to ask them to buy my thing, or maybe I'll just give them a really good discount.
Meanwhile, it's like
And
you fix cars. Like
yeah,
you want somebody you trust to fix cars because nobody understands how these damn things work, and you don't want them to
exactly.
quit.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'm sitting at this guy's, dinner table, and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'm so broke, I'm screwed. And he's like, you got to raise your prices. You've got 100 people in your gym and you're losing money. Like, you need to raise your prices. And I said, yeah, but Nick, like, they're all my friends now. Like, I can't raise my prices on my friends. And he bellows, because this is a giant dude. And he's, Wilma, get my checkbook. So, she comes out of the kitchen. She's got his checkbook, flops it on the table, and he writes a check for triple my current price.
Hmm.
And he goes, there, he slides it across the table. He goes, I just paid for my gym membership next month. And if anybody pays less than that, you're screwing me. Like, if you give somebody else a better deal. And I was like, like the lights
Yeah.
just went on. And he's like, Chris, your clients, your friends, your family, they should be the ones asking to pay more than full price, not asking for a discount. Like, if they're asking for a discount, they are not your friend. And I think like that was a big lesson that I had to learn about the power of connection. Like, the people who want the best for you are not the people who are going to try and negotiate your price. They should
Yeah.
be the first clients at your door. They should be the ones who are like, you need to raise your rates,
You don't have to be in business long to know that the people who pay the least are the biggest pain in the ass. Somebody
Right?
we have like 300 to 500 DM conversations on my Instagram every day, and a lot of them are just consultative. Like we just keep up with people and we'll check in and be like, hey, how's your business going? How you doing? Like and try to send them resources and stuff, right? And and often they'll ask if I can do a personal consult with them, and I technically do them for $1,000 an hour, but like I don't do them.
Right.
Like I think I accepted one this month, and so Carmelina, who helps me in the DM, sent a message back and said, John does it, but like we'd love to talk to you. It's $1,000 now, and he's like, I'll give you 200. like, what?
Yeah.
Like now I'm not talking to you. You give me 1,000. Like it's that type. We always joked when I worked in the gym. When I was the senior trainer in the gym, it was just like the people who the owner always did like Groupon and that kind of shit, right? And
Yeah.
the people who came in Groupon were always the people who complained about the quality of the towels. Like it was just became a joke. The people who paid like the people who would pay 50 sessions like $4,500 every 2 months, every 3 months, would just brought their own towel or they were happy with the quality of the towel.
Yep.
so
Exactly.
so how do you
I
go
get
about, because
that.
I agree with you. I mean, I the counterintuitive truth to business is that if you aren't getting enough customers, the secret is not to lower your price, it's actually to raise your price. I agree with you that raising your price is really important. But how do you tactically? See, I read too many books and I don't talk to enough humans. I don't know how to say words. How do you increase? How do you actually go about increasing your price?
Well, so I think like most of us would fall into that camp of we don't believe that till we see it. And so we start gym owners with this exercise that was created by Mike McAllowitz called the pumpkin plan. So
Mhm.
you take out a blank sheet of paper, you draw a vertical line down the middle. On one side you draw a dollar sign, on the other you draw a smiley face. And first, okay, I want you to open up your billing software and write down the 10 clients who pay you the most money. And now that you've done that, I want you to write down the names of the 10 clients who make you the happiest, who like
Hmm.
feed you energy. You're happy to see them when they walk in the gym. And lo and behold, five of the 10 are the exact same people.
Like the
Okay.
Venn
So
the
those,
Venn diagram is a circle, is what you're saying.
yeah, exactly. Surprise. So, oh, now those are your seed clients and you want to
Yeah.
duplicate them. So now we go to the affinity marketing exercise. All right. So,
Mm,
John falls in
smart.
that circle. Who is John's wife? Where does John work? What do John's kids do? And we're going to build out from there because, your friends probably earn about, a similar amount that you do. And like your wife definitely does. And you know what I mean? Like you probably hang out with people who are just as fun and energetic and nice as you are.
Sure.
So that's where we want to start. And
Yeah, that's really smart. Where do you work? Where do you
yeah,
hang out? What teams do your kids play for? What extracurricular stuff do you do? What hobbies do you have? What magazines do you read? Yeah, super smart.
yeah. And like that's where it comes in. And so, we work with over 400, 500 CrossFit gyms at a time. They're chronically underpriced. And so the first thing that we have to do is start them very small and say like, okay, we're going to introduce an on-ramp program. It's going to be double the value of what your current average client is paying. What? I'm never going to sell that. Well, let's try it 5 times and see.
Yeah.
Well, 3 out of 5 actually paid it. Okay, so do you believe that you're actually worth this now? And then, we ramp them up from there to the point where we can finally say, like, okay, it's time for a price increase across the board. We use a 15% rule. You can raise your rates up to 15%. And then we're going to take out your client list and you're going to highlight everybody who's going to quit over this raise. If that's more than 15 people, we're going to not do it. We're going to wait. But it always is like, oh, there's these 6 people. Okay,
How do
how
you
are you gonna?
know? How do you know that they're going to quit?
So it's like, okay, let's go through your client list one by one. John Goodman, if his rate goes up by $15 next month, is he gonna quit over that? Nah. Okay,
Yeah.
Sally Child. if her rate goes up by $15 next month, what's she going to do? Oh, she's going to have a rant. She's going to go nuts on Facebook. She's going to complain. She's going to firebomb my house. Do you want Sally in the gym or are you cool with losing her? Actually, that's not so bad if she goes.
Yeah.
Wonderful. On to the next.
Actually, Sally is kind of a pain in the ass, if I'm honest.
It happens so often, like nine times
Poor
out of
Sally.
10, right?
Poor
Yeah.
Sally. Yeah. She can go somewhere else, I guess.
I hope she's not
How do
listening to
you,
this. Yeah.
is that an actual person?
Yeah, she's
How
my
do you,
college professor. Yeah.
oh, that's funny. How do you know though how these people are going to react? Because I feel like when that happens, our own lizard brains are going to just go nuts on us and worry about all of the bad things that everybody's going to say. Whereas the reality of it is, it's probably not going to happen most of the time. But
Yeah.
how do you try to figure out objectively what response somebody is actually going to have?
Well, the gym owner will err on the side of caution most of the time. And
Right.
so, we might say like, can you find 15 people who will object to this? And they'll feel strongly that five specific people will, but they're going to say, well, these 10 might, and then we do the math and we say, okay, well, if you lost these 10 people, are you still further ahead by raising the rate 15%? And if the answer is yes, then we do it, knowing that out of the 10 that they estimate will quit, five will actually quit.
Sure. A couple might be upset or whatever, but then they'll forget about it.
Yeah.
And
And
it's just like
yeah.
common for companies to raise their rates. Like I think about
Yeah.
Starbucks all the time. It's like Starbucks raises its prices like a couple pennies basically every month.
Yeah.
Like most people don't notice it, but because
That's right.
everybody just taps. But I mean, they're just constantly raising their price. It just that's what people expect. I mean, especially nowadays.
Oh
Like
my
what was
goodness. Yeah.
inflation last year? 7% or something? It's
Oh
like
yeah.
so basically if you didn't raise your prices 7% in 2022, you are now working for less than you were last year.
You took a 7% pay cut. Yeah, exactly.
Completely. It's nuts.
Yeah.
Um I'm working out at a CrossFit gym now, which is the first time that I've ever really done CrossFit consistently.
Oh, cool.
Um, and I've been doing it for 5 or 6 months, and I wrote about my experiences there. I mean, I like it. I don't think it's like magical, but I like it, and I'm enjoying it, and I like the community. But and he was a customer of yours actually at one point.
Oh,
And I
awesome. Cool,
yeah, he
man.
was
Full
he was a
circle.
customer of yours, and
Love it.
yeah, and what so the first thing that I said to him when I walked in when he told me how much it cost, I just looked at him straight in the face. I said, "You need to charge more."
Hi, I'm John. Charge
I'm
more.
trying. You need to charge more.
Amazing.
But what was what I noticed about being there though is just he rents a building and he told me that God, I can't remember what it is, that the price per square foot went from something like $7 to $16 when he
Yeah.
signed his new lease. Like it was that extreme.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, man. Your rent more than doubled overnight. Went from like 3 or 4 thousand a month to like seven and a half.
Yeah.
It's like, you're not doubling your price. Like that's the kind of the world that we're in. But I like that exercise. I've read some of Mike McCallowitz's stuff, and if I'm completely honest, I kind of shied away from it a little bit because I get scared when people are almost like too good communicators.
Mm.
Like I get that with Hormozy a fair bit. I mean, we all know him from the fitness industry, and we all have our opinions on him. Of course, everybody has an opinion on him. But what I tell people with him is his content is really, really good, and the problem is his content is too good.
Mm.
He is such a convincing salesperson that he makes you believe that everything is perhaps way more important than it actually is.
Mm.
And that is a position that you really have to be careful of. And Mike Michalowicz, to me, is kind of that as well. He's such a persuasive writer that you read it and you're like, oh my God, I have to institute profit first today,
Yeah. Oh,
right? And I'm not saying
100%.
it's a bad system, but it's like not necessarily the right system. And so I've kind of shied away from his work purely for that reason because I've read it before, and the same with Clockwork, and I'm like, oh my God, like this is great, I have to do this, and then I catch myself doing it, and I'm like, wait a minute, I need to think about whether I should do this or not a little bit more. But holy shit, that dude's persuasive, and there's a danger in that. And so I never read Pumpkin Plan for that reason. But I like what you said about it. With it's just so obvious. It's like, okay, make a list of the 10 people who pay me the most. Make a list of the 10 people who I like working with the most. Where's the crossover? How do I find more people like this? like,
Yeah,
like to be honest, if that's like the main tenet, main core of the book,
that's the whole book. Yeah.
and so that's another issue that I have with a lot of nonfiction. Without reading the book, nothing against Mike. If you're listening to this, Mike, I like your books, but like that's an issue that I have with the nonfiction genre as a whole. Is one good idea spread out over 300 pages, whereas like the Obvious Choice book, I specifically have 13 different ideas, and each chapter is
Yeah.
one idea. Because I just don't, I don't know, I don't have time.
But I think a local entrepreneur can learn from that. So, what these guys are doing that makes them so popular is they're taking something that's very complex and making it
Mm-hmm.
simple, like a,
Yes.
a, a one page back of the napkin exercise. That's the pumpkin plan. But you can do the same thing with a local audience. So if you've got people in like Sault Ste. Marie who are trying to live longer, you don't have to share Huberman Lab podcasts with them. You just need to say like, well, here's what a heart rate zone 2 means,
Right.
and like that, make it really, really simple. And they're going to listen to you because you're that dude down the street who is on the opposing hockey bench.
They're not going to listen to a 2 hour podcast on how to avoid hiccups. Uh,
Yeah, exactly. You get it. That's it.
I can't get over like how do you market fitness information? It's a very distinct formula. It's you take largely inconsequential things, you make them sound way more important than they actually are, and then you find a whole bunch of studies that don't really substantiate what you're saying, but like kind of do a little bit, and like back up your like inconsequential fact with that. That's how you market fitness information, right? So hiccups are fine. You don't need to
Orange
listen to
Theory,
that
man.
episodes.
It's all built on one simple I mean, CrossFit's built on one simple premise that
Right.
we don't exercise intensely enough, right?
Yeah.
Does that mean that we all need to exercise with maximal intensity every single day? Of course not. But the general
Yeah.
public doesn't understand that.
Right.
And that's how they change the entire industry.
Yeah, they brought back intensity into it, didn't they?
Yeah.
And I see it, and I mean, when I go there, it's not always I see like I self-modulate, and
Yeah,
I
of
think
course.
a good coach helps you do that.
Yeah.
Um, well, this is wonderful, Chris. This has been
Thanks,
great.
man.
I like how specific we were able to get into a lot of things, and I like how much just carryover there is to anybody who really, really acts locally. And I think even if you are large, you can still act local, and there's a lot of advantages to it. There's as I talk about in the book, there's a massive amount of advantages for being local that you lose when you try to go international or bigger. And just because you can sell to somebody in the beachside barrio of Positos in Montevideo sipping yerba mate, just because you can sell to them now doesn't mean that you have to. And $200 is $200 is $200, and it's going to be way harder to get from that dude in the beachside barrio in Positos than it is going to be getting from Jim's wife, who's already been to your establishment, who you lost, right? Who you can
Very
get
true.
back.
Very true.
And I love that we were able to bring this into the summit. So I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Thanks so much, John. Lots of fun.